very excited to welcome you to our annual Pride special. I am John Idarola, host of The Damage Report, and occasionally the Young Turks as well. And through the course of the next 2 hours, you're gonna be joined not only by a number of awesome people from here within the TYT network, but some of our favorite guests, people who are doing amazing work in film and TV, activism, authors, playwrights, everything. It's gonna be absolutely awesome, and I can't wait to jump into it, so why don't we actually do that? I'm very lucky to be joined first on the program by actress, producer, and advocate Laverne Cox. Welcome to the program.
Hello, John. How are you?
I'm doing well, much better now that you're on the show. We're very excited to have you here. Thank you so much for taking time out.
Of course, I am so excited to be on TYT. I'm a huge fan. I try to watch every day.
Thank you so much. I mean, we feel like exactly the same way. We don't need to remind people of the many different programs you've done amazing work on, and you've also been recently recognized for your activism as well, online and otherwise. And so it's great to have you here. And so I wanted to start with you. I mean, we're launching in to Pride Month. What does Pride mean to you, particularly in 2022? What does this month mean to you?
Oh my, it's really, for me, it's always a reminder of how far we've come and how far we need to go. Every year, for the past several years, there have been legislative attacks in state legislatures all over the country. This year, over 200 pieces of legislation have been introduced in state legislatures all over the country, attacking transgender children, their ability to play in sports, mostly trans girls, their ability to access gender-affirming care. Many of these bills that have been introduced have been passed into law in Arkansas, in my home state of Alabama. There's policies in Texas, in Florida, and many states that are criminalizing trans folks getting access to gender-affirming healthcare, banning them from sports, and stigmatizing them. And these families are living in fear and being just treated terribly. I think it's really important when we have conversations. We always, we often hear this cloaked as a culture war, right? We talk about CRT and we talk about the attack on LGBTQ plus folks, and we say culture war. This is really a human rights war. This is a war on human rights, our access to, I mean, for me, I think that just with reproductive rights, a decision about whether a child can access gender affirming healthcare should be a decision between that child, their parent, and their doctor. Legislators are not doctors. They actually don't know what they're talking about. There are many pundits, both conservative and liberal leaning, who don't know what they're talking about. And it's really no one's business what a trans child is doing with their bodies.
I totally agree. I think that there should be far more people in the media and in politics who are able to own up to their own ignorance. In this case, what you're talking about is, for some, I think it's just regular ignorance. For some, it is very willing, enthusiastic ignorance. I mean, we've talked for a long time on The Damage Report. There are people in right-wing media that cannot do a show without talking about the trans community. And it does not appear that they have ever talked to a person in the community. Like day after day after day, they talk at it, or they send their audience at it, but they don't seem to understand it. So you talked about, recognizing how far the communities have come and how far they have to go. Does it feel at all as if it's actually been steps back in terms of the attacks that have been coming from the right?
Yes, absolutely. And I think the piece that you talk about with the media, I think it's twofold, right? So we learned with the whole sort of Taylor Lorenz Libs of TikTok situation that the creator of the Libs of TikTok Twitter account was communicating directly with the Ron DeSantis press secretary, right? So that this social media account that stigmatized LGBTQ folks was influencing policy in Texas. So that there's what is happening in mostly conservative media on the internet and Fox News, OAN, etc., is misinformation, propaganda about trans people, stigmatizing us, dehumanizing us, calling us all sorts of things that I just can't even repeat. And then that misinformation is being legislated. Similar to CRT, all the misinformation, and interestingly enough, Chris Rufo, who basically, sort of confessed that the whole whole plan with CRT was basically to say anything that has to do with race, we're gonna like cloak it under CRT, and basically, and that's what they've done, and they're legislating on that, and they're doing the same thing with trans rights and LGBTQ rights for children. Now, it's important to note too that the same organizations, Alliance Defending Freedom, the Heritage Foundation, etc., these organizations tried it with bathroom bills and they failed. They tried it with marriage equality and they failed. But now they're using children. Now they're saying, oh, they're trying to indoctrinate children. Oh, they're trying to experiment on children. A cable news comedian said a few weeks ago that we're experimenting on children with hormone blockers. These hormone blockers have existed for 40 years. 40 years. Hormone blockers have existed, and they've been used to treat non-transgender children who have precarious puberties, meaning their puberties happen too early, and hormone blockers just delay puberty, right? So they're people who don't know what they're talking about. They're not talking to trans people, and I would even say I'm deeply appreciative of the coverage that TYT has had, but I want to see more trans folks, not just during Pride Month, on TYT talking about these issues, and not trans people who are informed about the issues. I think it's deeply problematic when we just sort of bring in, a black person or bring in a trans person if they don't have a depth of knowledge on the information. And I think last thing I'll say on this is that the beautiful humanity of trans people, of trans children, is just being discounted in these moments. And it's just the ways in which we're being talked about by legislators, even as children. 10-year-old children are testifying before state legislatures and saying, please do not take away my health care. They're doing it anyway. They're not listening. They're not seeing us as human and as the beautiful humans we are. And I'm here to celebrate trans folks. I'm here to celebrate LGBTQ folks and not just rehumanize us, but rehumanize the people who have been propagandized to and radicalized by social media and misinformation. That is, I don't know how we sort of break through predatory algorithms that sort of feed this misinformation, but it's really important that we continue to elevate the real lived experiences of trans people and do it with love and do it with empathy.
Yeah, and especially when the stakes are as high as they are, when we're talking about people's literal lives.
They're really high.
Yeah. Whether it's people being targeted for violence in the community, or if it's kids who desperately need a sense of acceptance and understanding community, to have a political movement, this massive, well-funded political movement, preemptively, before socially it even really exists, stripping away all of those protections is particularly grotesque. And to do it under the auspices of protecting children is even worse. And to the misinformation, as you're right, there's a lot of misinformation. Like I watch, millionaire right-wing pundits who talk about how people like you, trans people, are going to make people trans. They're going to convince them, trick them, I guess. So you're charismatic and knowledgeable. So could you make someone by, if we were to have a really long conversation, could you against my will make me trans? Because they would have you believe that that's what people are doing, teachers and all that. I can't think of something in an area where already there is so much ignorance for them to indoctrinate their followers into thinking that an orientation, an identity that is core to you could be inflicted like a virus on someone is even sicker than all of the other ignorant ways that they've approached these sorts of identities.
It's laughable. It's absolutely laughable. And for me, and most of us, I tried everything I could to not be trans. I really didn't want to be trans because I think right now too, I'm so blessed with my life, and I'm really visible. So people see my life and they say, well, Laverne Cox is doing well. Well, Caitlyn Jenner is doing well. So trans people are fine, but they don't understand that the employment rate and the unemployment rate in the trans community is 3 times the national average, 4 times that for trans people of color. They don't realize that over 50% of trans people make less than $10,000 a year. They don't realize that 78% of children, of students, according to a study from GLSEN, experience harassment or bullying in school. Just walking down the street as a visibly trans person, you are a target for violence. You're a target for harassment. No one chooses this. My choice was, do I want to live as myself, or do I want to kill myself? I don't think we should, even though things have gotten better, and they have, in terms of in terms of media representation. I think that is the tricky thing. There's a unprecedented visibility that trans people have right now that I celebrate, that is beautiful. We're winning Golden Globes. We have Barbie dolls. Thank you, Mattel. We have so much beautiful, positive visibility. And so sometimes people are like, well, and that skews the real lived experiences of poor and working trans people. That obscures the experiences of, in Texas right now, Abbott's attorney general said we need to investigate trans children. If you see a trans child, report them. We're gonna have the Department of Children and Families investigate the parents for child abuse. Now there is an injunction. I talked to my friend Chase Strangio about the status of this. He's a staff attorney at the ACLU. So with that case in Texas now, there's an injunction against them investigating one family, and the Department of Children and Families can investigate other families, and we're not sure what's gonna happen. So the families in Texas are living in fear, right? They're basically like, parents are like, are they gonna come and investigate us and take my children away from me because I'm supporting them? Children are living in fear. And so that's what these laws are doing. We have to look at how these things are affecting the lives of real people. And so often, we just are treated like this political football that's being used as if we're not human. And so I think it's so important to elevate the stories of people like Fisher Wells, the child in Kentucky, who is the only trans girl that we know of who plays sports in middle school or high school. And the assembly and the state senate overrode the governor's veto of a bill that would prevent one child from playing sports in middle school or high school. There are no other trans girls that we know of playing sports in middle and high school. So a law targeting one child.
Yeah,
it's disgusting.
Yeah, it's disgusting. And look, obviously nothing else is going wrong in America that an entire party can put all of their attention into stopping a single individual from playing a sport. Clearly, that's the lesson that I'm getting from it. But look, you covered a lot of ground there, and I love that you did. You cited some stats that I sort of suspected, but did not know how bad they were. So I really do appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Can I say one more thing?
Of course.
I think that it is deeply urgent that we get some kind of strategy together. Those people who support trans folks, support LGBTQ plus folks, because the people who are anti-human rights for the LGBTQ plus community are winning. They are winning in spades. They're winning the communication war. They are coordinated. They have a message that is, it's all lies, but they're consistent with that messaging. They pound it over and over and over again. There have been, over the past several years, have been hundreds of Fox News reports on trans kids playing sports in schools. And like in mainstream media, in even independent media, there's like not nearly enough stories countering those narratives, right? There's like so much. I mean, when you look at, for example, the sports, the trans girls playing sports, there's not even really been enough studies done to really give us the correct information about whether there is an advantage or not. And there's just all this misinformation. So we need to get coordinated. We need to get active and like across all. Sorry, it's thunder and lightning in here. I hear. But we need to get coordinated. We need to get organized. We need to get our messaging consistent, because it is, it's CRT, it's anti-LGBTQ issues. They're banning books. Democracy is on the line, and nothing is happening from our legislators. And I think the last thing I'll say is that there are organizations out there, and I want to highlight a few. Campaign for Southern Equality, that are providing resources for people who may need to move out of the state that has these discriminatory policies. Campaign for Southern Equality, southern-equality.org, and Trans Family Support Services, transfamilysos.org. Organizations who are helping people on the ground to get access to services. Trans people have always gotten a hormone. Since I know a story of Major Griffith Gracie, when she was 15 years old in Chicago, apparently was getting hormones on the street, getting the German hormones. Trans people have always gotten hormones. Trans people have been transitioning from at 12, 13, 14 without doctors. We're gonna continue to get hormones, we're gonna continue to transition. Do you want us to do it safely, or do you want us to do it, go elsewhere? And I think that's The same thing with abortion. People are still going to have abortions.
Yeah.
So I think that's the piece, and we have to, since our laws and our politicians are not helping us, we have to be there for each other. We have to form communities and support each other, and that's what LGBTQ people plus people have been doing for decades. And we will continue to have chosen families and chosen communities and support networks where we'll be there for each other.
I love everything you just said. The defense, the support needs to be at least as strong, if not stronger, than the attack that we're experiencing. So I really do appreciate that. And as I said, you're touching on so many things that I wish we had time to dive into. I hope that we get future opportunities to talk about all of this and more. And unfortunately,
I'll come back anytime you want. We don't have to do it just during Pride Month. I'll come back another time. We'll talk.
I would love that. Let's definitely set that up. For now, though, Laverne Cox, thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you, TYT.
Thank you so much.
Hi, Anna. Hi, Jake.
I think she's not in the room, but she is watching, so hopefully she'll see that. Thank you. And for those of you watching at home, we've got a lot more to get to. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.